Hello, everyone. In today's episode, Ash and I are going to be talking about the importance of making time for your creativity as a way to be able to nurture yourself so that you can go out into the world and be your best self. We know that sometimes being a good human is not as easy as it might seem because life gets stressful and we have so much on our plates. So what often happens is we allow ourselves to be the thing that falls along the wayside because our to-do lists get so long. So Ash and I are going to talk about how we find that setting aside even 10 minutes a day is a way to be able to show up for yourself and to find the strength and the courage to be able to face all of life's challenges. So I hope that you've got your art supplies ready. And bonus, if you've got a jelly plate, grab that and create along with us as we chat about how creative practice can change your life. So let's get into it.
Gotta get messy and show the world you growing as an artist. And you're free to be yourself. You got a dream, you need to start it. Stick together. Get messy says you're formally invited to a community where you can find people that spark the feel of excitement. Too many art supplies, not enough time. No, it's tougher, so you must find a way to feel some connection. We got a lot of people with the same kind, a great mind. We here for you, a platform so we can hear your views. Time's yours, forget chores. I know you bored of them same rules.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Get Messy podcast episode. I am so excited to be interviewing Ash today for the podcast, and I know that you are going to enjoy hearing all about Ash's experiences and why she decided to start her creative journey. So, Ash, do you want to maybe give us an introduction to who you are and how you got into art journaling?
Sure. I'm Ash. I am married with two kids. My mother lives with us too, and our three cats here in the south of the U.S. I got into art journaling through a very common path, it seems. Scrapbooking, I hear a lot about people finding their way to art journaling through that. I didn't grow up very artsy. I remember like doodling on notes and things in class, but I didn't participate in art projects. I didn't take art classes. I don't have that intrinsic like talent, so everything has been self-taught. But started with scrapbooking decades ago, and then I had kids, and it was really hard to keep up. It felt like so much pressure to keep up with all of the pictures and the scrapbooking, and so I had to give that up really quickly. And then I found some artists and decided to try painting because paint is fun. And while I had fun, I realized that I missed my paper. Missed my paper so much. And so I don't know how. I mean, I knew about mixed media, but I'm not really sure what led me to art journaling. I did used to keep things like smash books. That's a term people remember. Just glue books. I don't know, just gluing a bunch of stuff in. I love collage. It's like one of my favorite things. And so that just led me to say, well, I don't have to do just paint or just paper. I can mix all of these things. And man, that really exploded in my brain. And it's a lot of fun. So it's taken decades for me to arrive here, but I'm not going to move, I don't think.
It's so interesting to hear that you started with scrapbooking because I loved scrapbooking. I was obsessed with it. I've got like cupboards full of scrapbooks, and it was so easy with the first child, and then the second child came along, and it was still fun and documenting all of it. And then the third one came along, and I was sort of thinking, how do I sort out the pages because I don't want one to have more than the other. And am I going to like be creating the pages in triplicate so that each one can have one for the journal, and so it started getting a little hairy because like, how am I going to sort this out? And then the fourth one came along and I was like, no, I can't anymore.
Yep. That's amazing. I have this beautiful scrapbooked baby journal for my first. My second has got like slapping pictures in a little pre-bought baby book. Sorry, Lowry.
Okay, so that is your backstory. So now you're an art journaler, and I love that we see you in all the hangouts. You're there creating alongside us, and I know that you've got other projects and other communities that you're a part of. And so it's so inspiring for me. I'm a homeschooling mom, you're a homeschooling mom, and so we've always got kids with us all day long. We don't get to send them off and have some space for ourselves. So it gets quite overwhelming sometimes because we love them, but they take a lot of us, right? It takes a lot of energy and a lot of, I want to say space. Like, I don't know if that's the right word, but it does take a lot of space in your life to have, to be on call 24/7, right? That it's all the responsibility falls on you. So do you want to share with us how making art has helped you in this part of your life?
Yeah. So my kids are neurodiverse, and it's not like there isn't a child out there that challenges their parents, but my expectations coming into motherhood were blown out of the water with dynamite by my first child. And they're both really challenging for me. And while every year, every moment gets better, I'm learning just as much about how to be vulnerable and comfortable with my emotions as they are. It is a lot. And so over this past year, since I joined Get Messy a year ago, I have learned to prioritize making and creating because I've realized that that's what has been missing in my life. This, because I've had a huge gap of not creating here in the throes of early childhood parenting. And so I just nipped it in the bud last year, and it's like I need this back in my life, and I put it on the calendar. We don't have like really structured. We have a rhythm to our days, but we're a very low key learning environment in my house. My kids have autism. They have something called pathological demand avoidance, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's an anxiety based thing. And so I've had to learn how to really reword and approach differently everything I do with them. And so everything's low key. And so I can really work around my art groups and my stuff because they don't care. They don't care when we do the stuff that we need to do every day. They're like, you go ahead and take. So I work around my groups now because I realize that once I come out of that, I'm going to be able to focus on them, and I've had kind of weight lifted from me because I've been able to put my emotions down in my work. Yeah, so it is 100% a lifesaver to me to step away every day to be a better parent for them. It's my mental health, self-care, all of it, and it's truly important over this past year that I've built this into my life. I can't imagine not having it now. It would be like cutting off a leg.
No, I agree. I completely agree. It's amazing how I think sometimes people think I'm being quite dramatic when I say that being creative can change your life. I think it literally can change your life, and it helps you to be a better human. I really believe it, that taking out, even if it's 15 minutes a day, just where you by yourself, just getting that energy out, I think allows you to be a better mother, wife, daughter, sister, friend, whatever it is. because you're making that time and space for yourself so that you can, that the old saying of filling your own cup so that you can, sort of fill other cups. But I think by creating art, we can fill cups with the overflow that we have, and not from sort of, the cup's full, okay, so now we pour out and it's empty again. But for me,
Right.
making art allows it to be that excess, that there's
Yeah.
extra energy to be able to share.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, I agree. I know growing up hearing that once you become a parent, your needs and cares are out the window and it's all about the kids, and
Mm,
that's how I was raised. And I'm
mm,
so happy to see the shift happening in the world about self-care for being a
mm,
parent is important, especially for the parent that's in the home with them all the time. You know, even if you're not homeschooling, if you're just caring for the younger ones or whatever, um, it's so important for us to think about
mm,
us, because it might seem selfish to people on the outside, but it really isn't. It's all about being better for the kids.
mm,
Like,
mm.
really.
Yeah, I think one of the big reasons why I decided personally to start my creative practice was I wanted to model for my children what was important. And so I felt that if they never saw me doing things that I needed or taking care of myself, I was teaching them that you put others in front of you, you do whatever you can for them until you are on empty. And once you reach empty, that's when you're allowed to go out and do stuff for yourself. I feel
Yeah,
like that was what I was modeling before I allowed myself to have a creative practice.
yeah,
And I didn't want my children to grow up feeling like that was the model. That's how you live, that you've got to give everything. And once you've reached that point, then you're allowed to give to yourself. So I felt that it was important to model what I wanted them to have, which was take care of yourself, and then you can be better when you're taking care of others.
I love that. I love that. On that same thought pattern is to let them know that fun doesn't stop when you become an adult.
Mm,
I mean, I have fun with them all day long, so they can see that. But
mm,
also, their dad comes home and he plays with them, and he has his own hobbies. So, I want them to know that becoming adults doesn't have to be all work and no play, because that's
mm.
no life. Yeah.
That's true. That is so true. So we're homeschooling and we're getting creative every day. How have you seen your creative practice growing over the last year that you have been sort of consistently putting it on your calendar and making time for yourself?
Um, wow. Yeah. So putting it on the calendar, making sure that I sit during the quiet moments. Um, if they're off zooming around upstairs, I'll take 10 minutes downstairs
Mm,
in the studio. Um, I realized over the past year that I've gotten used to not being able to finish something, a project or a page or whatever, in one sitting. I, it annoyed me in the beginning, but I have gotten completely used to it because that's the life I live.
mm. Yeah.
But just sitting down in a quiet moment, taking time in the earlier mornings when they're just, because we have slow mornings in my house, and taking time then with my coffee, and after I've had a little bit of reading time, because that's my other hobby, is reading. And to sneak in there and get some creative juices flowing. And again, that starts my day off well. Um, but just making sure I do something every day. You know how you guys say,
Mm,
just just show up and get something made. And I've realized that I don't need to make these elaborate projects every day; that they can come together over time. Um, I just make sure that I step foot and give myself permission to do something at that desk every day.
And then the other thing that I was thinking that was so important that you mentioned was creating pages from start to finish. I know for myself personally, when I started art journaling, I was watching a lot of classes and lessons and YouTube videos. And I know now pages don't happen start to finish. There's breaks in between, there's days in between. But when you're
Mm-hmm.
watching those lessons, you sort of get the idea that you should sit down and create the page start to finish. Like that's the way things are done. And it
Yeah.
took me a really long time to get to the point where, as you say, you're not feeling frustrated because it's not happening for you. And so now I don't create anything start to finish. I take my time and I come and go and I work on other projects in between. But I think in the beginning, it really is a struggle to realize that start to finish is not the norm, or it's not necessarily how you're going to be creating in every season of your life. And if you can't get something done in one sitting, it's totally okay.
Absolutely. Do
Hmm.
do you ever feel like if you started something and you leave it and come back to it, i- do you feel like you're not into it anymore? Does that ever happen to you? Like you stepped away from it for a little while
Mm.
and you come back and you look at it and you're like, oh man, I don't have the same, you know,
The same
zest.
passion for it. Yes, I hear
Yeah,
you.
that occasionally happens to me.
um, that's an opportunity though. That's an opportunity to take it
True.
in a completely different direction to what it was originally. Yes, if that had to happen, I would be thinking, how can I change it so that I do feel inspired again? Maybe that's why. Maybe it does happen, but I'm so um, in the flow of just letting go of the outcome to be able to say,
Hmm.
I'm going to just like totally pivot on it, and even if it just gets covered up and you start in something totally new on the same page.
Right.
I'm not too precious about things like that.
Yeah,
Mm.
I've gotten over the preciousness, and I don't think that I ever stepped into art with this perfectionist piece because perfection to me is just kind of this out there concept that we've created uh,
Mm.
as humans. And I just, it's just not a thing to me, and it certainly doesn't belong in art. Um, because
Yeah.
if everything looked perfect, it would all look different to everybody because we all have different ideas about what perfect. I mean, it's
Mm.
kind of that art is in the eye of the beholder. We're not all going to view art the same way. So
Mm.
I I like taking that takes pressure off because I don't I don't bring it I don't bring it to the table. I'm going to have fun. I'm not in here to torture myself because life is hard enough. So I'm going to come in here and have fun. At the end of the day, I'm creating it for myself. I'm not trying to
Mm.
sell art. I do occasionally try to sell a journal that I've made. But other than that, I'm not trying to, sell off my stuff. That's not why I do the art. Um, but yeah, I make art for me. And at
Mm.
the end of the day, it's, it, I'm just going to be happy with whatever happens because it came from me.
The why, I think, affects the how. And so,
Mm,
because you're doing it for you and to have some fun and to let go of pressure and anxiety, then there's no space for that in your studio, right? Because
yeah,
you're letting go of those things. So I
yeah,
think that really affects how one creates because, the core of what you are trying to get out of it is so clear for you.
great. I agree. Yeah.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay, so the other thing that I know about Ash is that you love creating journals.
Yes.
I've seen every now and then on Instagram you're posting your stack of journals that you've created. So, what is it about putting journals together that feels so good for you?
I think it's making the papers, number one. I like to do a lot of jelly printing. I am so thankful for the art community for introducing that to me because that is an incredible little tool. And I'm amazed
Mm.
at how much I still don't know about it when I see someone create something with a jelly print. I'm like, how did they do that? It's so much more than what
Mm.
it looks like, what you can do on that little that little thing. So I love learning new jelly print techniques and making papers for the journals. I think that's probably where my biggest love is. And so obviously I use some of those papers in my own work, but I end up with a lot of papers. And
Mm-hmm.
so I like coordinating them into the signatures, figuring out. Sometimes I just want to keep them all one size. Sometimes I want to arrange them by different sizes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I like the ripped edges. Sometimes I kind of don't have a set way that I make them. They're always random, always, because that's what I like about art, just random stuff. So yeah, putting them into signatures and then getting them in and then making the cover is always so much fun too. And I do not have elaborate like techniques for covers yet, although I did start using fabric recently for covers, and that's been a lot of fun. Get Messy helped me get into a little bit of sewing and fabrics in my journaling, which I had always say I was never going to do that because I wasn't interested in. Yeah, right. That changed. I'm still not as into it as so many others are, but I do love a good pretty stitch pattern here and there. So I think it really starts with the making of the papers or the book is where I really love. And I just love doing it, and at the end of the day I've got to make use of those papers. I can't rip them all up. There's just a lot of them.
I think what makes creating journals so fun is that each one's got its own personality. Yeah. And that's what I was thinking as you were talking, as you say, some pages have got ripped edges, some journals have got coordinating papers, some of them have got same size papers. So each one has a different feel, and it also affects how you create in it because of the size or the paper that's used or the colors that you start off with. And so I think that adventure is the word that comes up for me, is that each journal is going to have its own little creative adventure because of the personality that you've put into it. And I think that makes it exciting.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a few I've made, and one was this really woodsy color theme, browns and greens and golds and like ochres. And I love that journal so much. To me, it is like it has to be like nature stuff in there because that's what it calls to me. And I also do a lot of writing in that journal, which is interesting. I'm not big on the written word coming from myself, which is I'm trying to get better with that because I do have a lot of words that can come out. I usually let the imagery do that for me. But I journal a lot in that book, and I want to know. I feel like because it feels naturey to me, and nature is so calming and so important for our mental health that when I open that book and see those beautiful colors in that book, it just helps me relax maybe enough to get words out. I don't know what it is, but yeah, that's kind of like my writing journal. And then I always have to put something artsy on the page with it because I have to do that. But yeah, it's interesting now that I think about that journal and how it makes me feel. Interesting.
It sounds like it's your grounding journal.
Yes, that is what it is.
As you were saying the words, I was thinking of like little seeds that you're putting in, like you're putting stuff in that you are not seeing results of right now, but they're there, they're stirring, they're germinating. So you're putting it all in there, and then it's just going to blossom and bloom one day.
I love that. It's my grounding journal. Yay!
I love that you were saying I don't have many words, right? I feel the same way. Like I often just say the art does the speaking for me. I don't have words to explain it. So even with writing Instagram captions, it'll be like 2 words.
Oh my gosh.
Because I feel like words just, I don't know, words are just not there. So I let the images and the colors and the textures and layers do the talking for me. So I hear what you're saying with the words. Sometimes I sort of look for a quote. I think the furthest I've come every now and then is either one word or a phrase or two, but yeah, for me, it's very image heavy as opposed to wordy. But I love words too. Like I have that longing to be able to put more words into my work. I think we're always striving for sort of what we're lacking almost. And so words is definitely for me something that I feel, I fall short on the words aspect.
I can see an image and want to create around it, but for the most part, I remember Suzanne saying, and that's on her podcast that she often doesn't know what's going to come out when she sits down, and that's exactly how I work. I rarely find an image ahead of time or some focal points or quotes. That definitely isn't a natural way for me to create. I just sit down and start doing it.
I often think it's following breadcrumbs, right? You just have to do one step and it will tell you what the next step is.
Yeah, that's funny, breadcrumbs, yeah.
So I love asking everyone if they've got a favorite color or if they could only choose one color to create with for the rest of their art career, what would the color be and why? Now, disclaimer, I know that the color would probably be different tomorrow than what it is today. So I'm going to say right now, today, in this moment, what would be your color?
This is a hard one. I was thinking about this because I always have three that I want to reach for. So today's
Go for it. Give us all three.
Okay, all three. So first would be turquoise. That's like, I love that color. And the next would be the hot pink, the fluorescent pink, so whatever. The pinks that we love. And then indigo blue. I fell in love with indigo blue when I took a watercolor course. I don't know. It's probably over a year ago. And that was her contrasty color that she used in watercolors and her flowers. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I loved this so much as a just a deep contrasty color for things. So yeah, turquoise, hot pink, or fluorescent pink, and then indigo blue.
Those three together, I think, would create such beautiful palettes.
I have not tried those three together, which is weird, but yes, I am here for that.
That might be an interesting rabbit hole to go down. Because as individual colors, right, I think they would look so good together, but then you could start mixing them and seeing what combinations you could create. I love that. I think
in there.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Some really moody colors when you bring in the indigo, and then some really fun pops if you had more hot pink. This sounds like something you need to be exploring here.
I need to write it down.
So you love jelly printing, and I would say that if you were going to start art journaling, it would be one of the tools that you should consider investing in. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad that I did. I mean, and as much as we turn people onto the jelly print in the Get Messy group, and then they come back and like, oh my gosh, this thing is incredible. Yeah, it's kind of foreign to you when you don't know what it is, but once you get it and start playing, it's incredible. It really is. I would say that is a tool to definitely invest in.
It's just hours of endless play, right? And as you were saying, you get it and you think, okay, well, I could just sort of put paint on and pull a paint off, but there is so much that you can do and create along with the plate that I think it's a tool that everyone should have. Should anyone? You should consider it.
Consider it. Yes, we'll say it that way. Definitely go to YouTube and look up jelly printing because you will find just an unlimited amount of inspiration and the things that you can do with it. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool tool.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. So, what other supplies do you think people should consider including in their supplies if they were wanting to start art journaling and they're thinking, where do I start? Because there's so much stuff, right?
Right.
I think it gets very overwhelming in the beginning because you feel like I have to have all the stuff, and if I don't have all of it, I can't do any of it. So, what do you think are a few essentials that people can put together as a little starter kit?
Yeah. I definitely think getting a few different types of paper, um, even if you can't find like, the antique vintage type stuff, you can print some out because I do think those vintagey type papers are really fun. Um, and maybe invest in something like a deli paper or tissue paper, just different papers. Um, paint, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And when you start out, just go buy those little 50-cent Apple paints from Walmart just to start out with. And you don't even need a paintbrush. You could get a key card, a credit card, or gold credit card, or a little spatula from your kitchen. I mean, or the paint palette knife. That's become my new love since we did that class in the Curiosity Collective. I'm like, wow, why did I ever use palette knife to paint with? Look around your house for mark making tools. You don't have to go out. Raid your recycling bin. I love stencils too. I would say I've become a big fan of stencils lately. I think they really can add a great like little oomph to a page. Yeah, and some good black pens for scribbling.
Yes, I would say paint pens, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just one or two in your favorite colors, because when you're wanting to add those final details, I know I'm always reaching for the paint pen. If it comes to finishing touches, I think the paint pen is the best for me personally. Okay, so we've chatted about the starter kit that people can put together if they want to start art journaling. And then what would you say are some things to keep in mind as you are starting on this creative journey? Since you are fairly new to this still, I think it's fresh in your mind what kind of thoughts you were having as you started. So, but I mean, you have grown in leaps and bounds. In the year that I've known you, it's been amazing to see how you've come out of your shell and you've just shared your art with the world, which I love. I love that you are inspiring others to share their art and to make creativity a part of their life. So for those people that are sort of still on the fence or thinking I'll start when life looks like this or whatever it is, that are, finding excuses not to start today, what advice would you give them?
I would say to put yourself first for once, because so many of us don't do that. You don't need a lot. You probably have plenty of stuff in your house already that you can use. And if you have kids, use their supplies before you go splurge, just to see, if it fits for you. And I would say to make art for you, to not allow the influence of the millions of amazing artists out there make you feel like your art isn't good, because I didn't really consider myself an artist until I just recently did, the release and return thing with Kaylee. And, during our heart-storming moments, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel comfortable calling myself an artist now. Like, I am an artist. And I think that so many of us starting out on this, it feels very foreign. And, I'm not an artist, but I feel like anybody has the opportunity to be an artist. if you sit down and create something, even if you don't want to show it to anybody, you still created something, and that says a lot, for for you and your personal journey, I suppose. So don't be afraid to explore, and if you don't like it, that's okay. But hopefully one day you'll work around and say, it doesn't matter that I messed that up because I'm finally there. I don't get freaked out about making mistakes anymore. I either cover it up or leave it there because sometimes the oopsie is a good one. And sometimes you're not okay with it, and that's okay because at the end of the day, I'm not making it to sell it. I'm not making it to make someone else feel good. It's for me, and maybe I'll learn from that oopsie, and maybe it will grow into something more amazing than I could have imagined. But so just make for yourself, and that's where you're gonna do your healing and your just your happy place is just to sit down and even set a timer if you have to. If that's what your life is like, then set the timer. And maybe if you're a morning person and you sit down for an hour on your phone, maybe cut that into 30 minutes and sit down with a piece of paper and a pen. I don't know. I mean, I kind of would do that, and I have really cut down my kind of what I called it my I forgot the word now. Of course, my veg time. I'm just sitting there like a vegetable, staring at my screen, and I don't do that nearly as much anymore because that's not serving me in my my mental health journey and just being a better person overall. It's really when I sit down at the art table.
I know for myself, even now, when people hear, I'm an artist, they immediately ask me, what do you paint? Can you draw a sketch of my daughter for her birthday? That kind of thing where they immediately go to this realistic. And so I think it holds a lot of people back from starting to create because there's that expectation from outside people when you tell them, I've joined an art community, or, I go to an art date once a week. People immediately want to know, oh, you're doing landscapes? Or, it's just, there is definitely that stigma. So if you can allow yourself the space to say, I create art for myself. I think it's so cute. My husband now, he explains to people, she works in little books and makes art for herself. When people are like, oh, like, where does she sell her paintings? And he's like, no, it's in little books. It's just for her.
I love that. Yeah.
So I think, it's true, right? So we've just got to get to the point where you realize that art and being an artist means different things for different people. And so there's no expectation that you have to be able to draw perfect faces to be able to start making art. Just go in with the idea that you're going to slap some paint around with your fingers and call it a day.
That's fun. And, strive, if you're interested in making a junk journal, then, work on that. If you're interested in learning how to paint, work on that. Art journal is a place where you can work on a lot of things. And, it really does take the pressure off when it's just on these pages that are just pieces of paper at the end of the day.
Exactly. You can rip them out. You can paint over them. You can stick over them. It's not permanent. Yes. We are definitely friends if you can burn them. I think it's so much fun. And I love being able to talk to other people who get it because there's just so much freedom to be able to do all sorts of crazy things. And it's part of expressing yourself and reconnecting to yourself too through the different processes like finger painting. I know it sounds weird to say that you can connect to how you're feeling by using your fingers, but it really is true.
It is. I mean, again, going back to the whole plaything from Suzanne's lesson, you really can sit down and feel like a kid again, and that feels really good. They have such freedom in their day to days, and um, being able to just take that off of us as adults who have so much responsibility, and not just to ourselves but to so many others. It's just to be able to sit down and I'm gonna play right now. I mean, that just is great.
We need a little space and time for ourselves. We give so much in everything that we do. So it's good to give yourself a reward and say,
Yes.
let's go make something.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you so much for chatting to me, Ash, for saying yes to joining me, and for being brave and sharing your heart and your art with us. It has been such a privilege to get to know you in the Hangouts, and I really look forward to a lot more creating and laughing and digging deeper along with you.
Yes, thank you. This was a lot of fun.